What's going down, D-Gens? I'm back again, trying to end out the week strong. Want to go over a couple things. I'll go over the docket first, and then we'll kind of get into it. First of all, let me just say, in the new Madden, they made Tom Brady way the hell too damn good. Like, it's so damn frustrating trying to play this guy in the game that you just start, like, throwing everything. It's like engage 8 every single damn time, and it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't. Anyways, I just hopped off the game, and I was, like, still kind of pissed about that. So, let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about some teaser picks that I have, but they are on the podcast only. So, sorry. Yeah, it's a numbers game. I'm going to try to get you over there. If you have time to do it, great. If not, don't worry about it. For me, it's a very seldom that I do a teaser, but it's a 6-team teaser. You guys can go over there, listen to it, pick all 6, pick a handful of them, whatever you want to do. If you do decide to play all 6 and it comes through for us, it does typically pay about plus 550 to plus 600. It's a long shot, right? It is what it is. It's a 6-team teaser. If you know me, if you've been watching this channel at all, I very rarely, as in like never, do something like this. This is just kind of kick off to the season, like a quarter of a unit or even like an eighth of a unit depending on how much you're playing, and it's just kind of for shits and giggles, but also because there's a lot of good numbers on the board for week 1. So I'll put the link in the comments below. Give it a listen, especially if you're somebody who likes to take long shots. If you have, if you're done playing all your bets for the week 1 game or the week 1 lineups, and you're like, you know what, I got $5, I got $10 left over. Throw it in there, see what happens, right? If nothing else, maybe a round robin if you can. If not, who knows? Give it a shot. So I'll put the link to that in the comments below, and that's pretty much it for that. So I'll scratch that off the list. But other than that, I do want to talk about the preseason week 2 line moves that we've been seeing so far, and then we're going to go into the week 1 of the actual regular season line moves. There is a new pick that I have for week 1, and it was one I was trying to hold on a little bit longer, but it does look like the value is going to get sucked out of that, so we want to get on it sooner than later. I also have a week 2 pick to give you, and so obviously that's even further out, but it is another one where I think if we continue to wait, you're probably going to lose the line value that we have right now, or at least the little bit that is in there. Secondly, though, or I guess next on the list here, it's going to be the preseason week 3 look ahead. So for the last week of the preseason, there's really only 1, possibly 2 games that I'm looking at. And honestly, I'm really leaning more towards just the 1. But we'll go into that last. And that'll kind of wrap us up for the day. So let's get started. What about these preseason week 2 line moves? Just to recap the picks before we even look at the lines. First pick was like Steelers plus 3.5. The Browns plus 3, and then the Jets, we got it at plus 2, possibly plus 2.5, depending on what book you were using. I put down plus 2 for my own record keeping, but again, it's going to be on what book you got. So, where have the lines gone? Are they with us, against us? Where are we at? And again, if you're new, just let me tell you, I use a lot of numbers and a lot of different like algorithms and setups and all that kind of crap. So if you don't like it, sorry, it may not be the breakdown for you. But one thing that is kind of a cool little nugget is line moves. For every point that you get in your favor, typically you're looking at about a 3% increase in the likelihood of your wins. That's off of like the Pythag theorem and all the other kind of stuff. So just kind of a nugget there for you guys if you didn't already know that. And that's why we look at line value. If you're consistently getting good line value, odds are you're going to win at the end of the season. You can be the best handicapper, put in all the time, all the effort, all that kind of stuff, and you're still not going to win 100% of the time. But if you're getting line value pretty consistently, that means you're at least on the right side with the sharps or the books or whatever it may be. So the first one here is the Steelers Jaguars. This one has moved in our favor, so we got it at Steelers plus 3.5. It's now down to Steelers plus 3, so we have had some more money come in on this. Now, I don't know how much more we're going to see this move, but I wouldn't be too shocked to see it dip below the 3 and go to 2.5. At that point, though, I think you may see some buyback, at least a little bit. we already have the rationale for this one, but essentially the Jaguars don't have a whole lot behind their starting crew, and the Steelers have a lot of competent players, not star players, not great, not guys who are going to go out and win in the regular season, but a lot of just competent play behind their initial starters. So that's why we picked them. The line's moving in our favor. What's good news there? The second one is going to be the Browns. The Browns actually take place on the following day. We got them at +3. It went down to +2.5, and then it even went down to +2 in some spots, but it has been coming back up. So right now it's back up to +3. This is on my bookie. Some other places still have it at the +2.5. So we still got some sort of line value on this one. For the most part, put the play out there. It did good. We got the value, and then it's just kind of coming back up. So somebody's on the other side of this one. Somebody's thinking the Eagles are going to win this game and cover the 3 points. I've heard even Eagles fans come out and say, yeah, we don't give a shit about preseason, and it's very evident that we don't give a shit about preseason, and this is going back even before Sirianni was the coach of the Eagles. So, it is what it is. We know why we like the Browns. I still like their depth, and with the whole Deshaun Watson suspension coming out, and now that it's been extended to 11 games, just gonna harp on that again. I think this is probably the perfect time for the Browns to go ahead and roll him out and use him as much as they possibly can, knowing that this is probably the closest he's going to get to, live fire, assuming that the Eagles do come out and play this one as a dress rehearsal, which, again, I think most of the NFL is going to do that this week, if not all of the NFL. You may want to have Watson out there to take as much of it as you can, as much as he can soak in, and kind of get some of those reps in while he still can, because after next week he won't be able to play again until week 13. So you're going to have him and then Jacoby Brissett behind him, assuming Brissett plays, and I still think he will. We should have a pretty good depth chart there for the Browns playing for us, while the Eagles, who knows how much time that their starters are going to get, but probably not very much. Lastly, we have the Jets. Now, the Jets we got at +2. It did go to +2.5 for just a little bit, and it got kind of bet back down. So again, it looks like somebody's maybe on the other side of this one. It started off at +1.5. Then we got it at +2. So it's been kind of hovering around there, depending on what book you're looking at. So not really a whole lot of difference in this one either, other than some slight bumps up and down. Usually in the preseason, guys, if you're not already aware of this, the limits are pretty low, as in, most professional bettors can't even get $500 down on a preseason game or anything more than that. And if you do take a big bet as a book, that is, they're going to move the lines and move it pretty drastically. The lines aren't very sharp for preseason, so that's kind of why we want to take our edges here while we can. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these lines move pretty wildly. There was a game today, so I'm recording this Thursday night, and it was the Bears and the Seahawks. Not a game that I wanted to touch, but that just did not go according to plan at all, and clearly the books were off on that one, because that was, I believe, a 4.5 point favorite for the Seahawks, and they just got their ass handed to them. So just kind of goes to show that the books are not always the best, especially in preseason. They're really going to be determined, not that they aren't always, but they're even more biased to the little bit of money that kind of influxes the number, right? So that's where we're at for the preseason line moves. Really, my favorite one is still the Browns. I don't typically lay 2 units or anything like that, but if you have a couple extra bucks at the end of the day here and you're like, you know what, I want to put this on something, I would probably lean towards the Browns. That's my favorite. That's my best bet for this coming week. So that's where we're at. Now, I do want to look ahead to next week, and like I said, there's really only one game that I like next week, and that's going to be the Steelers. So the Steelers are playing the Lions, and again, this is just another bet on and bet against kind of coaching staff here, right? So we have the Steelers with Mike Tomlin. They're currently 36-24. That's lifetime for Mike Tomlin, so that's a 60% win rate, whereas Dan Campbell is 0-4. So he doesn't give a damn, and we don't really have any reason to think that's going to change. Maybe he comes out this week and he tries to win for the week 2 dress rehearsal. Even if he does, though, it's even more reason to kind of fade him next week. If he gets the one win, he gets the statement with his team and whatever he wants to do, great. Who gives a shit? Next week, he's probably not going to care, and he's probably going to be more concerned with trying to keep his players healthy, especially his starters, especially, obviously Jared Goff and DeAndre Swift and all that kind of stuff. So I really think we have a good spot there with the Steelers. Now, who knows what the line is going to be, but that's why I'm telling you now, because most likely Monday morning you're going to have these lines come out, and it's going to be very similar to what happened for this week 2 lineup, in that the numbers are going to come out. This week they came out, I would say, roughly about 9 a.m. Eastern time. You're probably looking at about the same time, about 8 to 9 Eastern time. And then for some books, the books that are kind of like a lagging indicators, they may not put the lines out until 10, 11, 12 Eastern time. So just check it Monday morning while you're at work or taking a shit or whatever you're doing. Check the lines, make sure that you're on them as soon as they come out, because you're going to see another week of these wild, drastic line moves, and you want to be on the right side. One, because obviously it has the most line value, but two, because in this third week of preseason, there's not, again, a whole lot of games that I have that I want to bet on. And then secondly, if you see one that has a wild line move, and you may be able to get some arbitrage and give yourself, what's going to amount to some free money, basically. So just to give you an example of the other bet on coaches for week 3 is what I'll call it for the preseason, right? Not counting the Hall of Fame week. We have the Jets with Robert Saleh, who we've been betting on these first 2 weeks. He's going to play Brian Daboll week 3. Daboll looked really good in the first game he had with the Giants as far as the preseason goes, and I do kind of think he's going to try to win. He is coming from the Bills. So the Bills have kind of had a tendency to try to win in the preseason. So it wouldn't surprise me that Brian Daboll tries to continue that. The Browns also, again, Kevin Stefanski's looking to try to be the next Harbaugh. He's 4-0 with his record in the preseason since he took over as head coach. That being said, though, the Bears are 2-0 in the preseason this year, and they have a new coach. So it's very possible that their new coach is putting some emphasis on preseason, and he's trying to win. Now, the first one against the Chiefs didn't really surprise me because the Chiefs don't ever give a damn about preseason. But the fact that he just went in there and beat the dog shit out of the Seahawks, and that team is going to have a little bit more rest for what it's worth in the preseason, is going to be enough to kind of keep me off of that game. Aside from that, we do have the Ravens with John Harbaugh. So obviously great coach, and that's pretty much like an auto play if you're into, I think Harbaugh's going to win the rest of the preseason games for the rest of his life. Then you're going to automatically bet that game. I'd be very, and I don't want to say concerned, but I'd be very hesitant, and I want to see what the line comes out first. John Harbaugh is not a surprise. It's not a secret anymore, and usually the lines adjust once, the cat's out of the bag, and so the lines are going to probably be pretty inflated. And not to say that I wouldn't take it or I wouldn't bet it, but I would really think twice about it, especially if it's a big number like a 6 or a 7, like it is this week. So that's another one of the bet on coaches that we really may or may not want to look at next week. The other game that I was at least somewhat interested in was the Bills-Panthers game. The Panthers have not had a whole lot of success in preseason under Matt Rule. I believe he's about a 50, about a 500 kind of coach for preseason. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he's 2-2. The Bills, on the other hand, as of right now, are 11-5 under Sean McDermott. So I do think that they can come out and win this game. The one reason I'm a little hesitant on this one is that the Panthers typically play the Steelers the last game of the season, or the last game of the preseason. This is actually the first time since 2017 that they don't play each other to end the preseason. Of course, not counting the COVID year where we didn't have a preseason. And against the Steelers, there's something like 3-2 in the last 5 years. Now, obviously, that hasn't all been with Matt Rule, but he did win with the Panthers against the Steelers. And that's going to be enough to kind of keep me off of this one, especially if he wants to go out and maybe he's putting some emphasis on this, or he's trying to set something up. Also, the Panthers, with their quarterback, quote-unquote battle, we should have an announcement by then or pretty close to who's going to be the starter. Obviously, it's probably going to be Baker Mayfield, but with that being said, even if it hasn't been announced, whoever is starting this game is going to be at least an adequate quarterback, if you consider Sam Darnold adequate, right? But either way, you're going to have some talent on that Panthers team. It's not going to be a cakewalk. The Bills should still win that game. I am still going to look at this game and just kind of peek at the spread on it once it gets posted, but it's not going to be an autoplay for me. So those are some of the games. There's really not anything else that sticks out here. If anything, you may want to look at the unders because a lot of these teams are probably not going to give a shit about preseason in general, but specifically the last game of preseason, because at that point it is really a matter of just keeping your guys healthy. They don't want to get nicked up the week before the games actually matter. Packers, Chiefs, two teams that don't really care. The Seahawks may put an ass whipping on the Cowboys here because Mike McCarthy is another guy who's proven he doesn't care, and Pete Carroll may actually want to come out and get a win this preseason because he has not looked good so far. Patriots, Raiders, who knows? Chargers to Saints, another two teams that don't give a damn. So that, again, maybe a look to under on that one. Rams and Bengals, Super Bowl rematch here, right? Where, again, nobody gives a shit. Starters probably aren't even touching the field. So those are a couple games where you may want to look to play the under, if anything. But again, those I'm not like prioritizing. So as soon as the lines come out on Monday morning, I'll be looking at the Steelers first, see what's there, see what the line is at, see if I need to jump on that, and then from there we'll kind of break it down afterwards. So for right now, just circle it down, highlight it, whatever you got to do to remember the Steelers versus the Lions. That's when you want to look at once we get to Monday morning. So let's go ahead and look into week 1 of the actual regular season. And same thing here, guys. We want to look at some of the line moves first. I'm going to recap some of the plays that we have, and then we can kind of take it from there and see what, if any, value has been opened for us. So the first one, obviously my favorite, is that Rams line. Again, we grabbed it earlier in the summer at +1, thinking it was the value. It obviously went up. It's at +2.5 right now. I do think this is going to stay here. So if you haven't been paying attention to ESPN, good job. You're doing the right thing as a handicapper, right? Don't listen to that shit. But the Bills are getting hyped up all sorts of ways from Sunday, right? And it's just all getting everybody wet about them Josh Allen. So turn on the news, turn on fantasy, turn on whatever, and you're going to hear about Josh Allen and how great he is and how tough he is and how he's the best quarterback and he's the number 1 pick and blah, 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 blah. And then you're going to hear about how Stephon Diggs is looking good and how they got Jared Cook and how everything is great and all this other shit about the Bills, right? And when you listen to the Rams, even though they just won the damn Super Bowl, all you hear is negative shit. Matt Stafford has a messed up elbow. Allen Robinson is old. Cooper Kupp is due for some regression. The offensive line isn't good. Cam Akers is still hurt. Darrell Henderson is hurt. And so you're hearing all this, and these lines are essentially the take is all on the Bills. And as you get closer to the actual kickoff of this game, I think you're going to see even more Bills money come in. You're going to see more and more and more because everyone is just hyped on this Bills team. I'm not buying it. I don't give a shit who's back there. Without Brian Daboll, you're going to lose a step. And from what I've seen so far, it seems to me that the books are already taking a stand on this one. They're not going to give us the 3. They're not going to let the money push this line up to the Rams +3. So if you want the 3, I went out and I got it, you're going to have to pay the extra juice for it. It's usually about -120 or so. I think it's worth it. Either way, though, I don't see them moving it. So the books are telling us that they are just not going to move. They're not willing to give us a key number, and it doesn't matter how much money comes in on the Bills. They're taking their stand right off the bat, first game, and I think that that's smart because I think that the bookmakers understand that the Rams have most of the advantages in their favor, and it's really just a lot of hype and talk and fluff that they're getting the Bills. Now, I'm saying this and it sounds like I'm disparaging the Bills and like they're a shit team, and they're not. They're really, really good. They have a lot of good players. The offense is still going to be great and all that kind of stuff. So don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that the Bills are not good. I'm just saying that in this first game, all of the trends and a lot of the stats and a lot of the lineup issues all are going to favor the Rams. And if you are looking to play this in fantasy or DraftKings or anything like that, I would actually be really looking at Allen Robinson to have a huge first game, with a lot of the attention being shifted towards Cooper Kupp, because obviously, he's got a lot of the talk in the offseason for his record breaking and all that other kind of stuff. Allen Robinson can play the role of Odell Beckham in the Super Bowl before Beckham got hurt. Obviously, a lot of underneath stuff, a lot of wide open stuff, and letting just Stafford hit him over and over and over again. He may end this game with like 9 catches for 100 plus yards and a touchdown or 2 touchdowns. I could see him coming out and having a huge just breakout party right off the gate. So I don't think the Bills are going to be able to compete with that as far as just from a coaching schematics point. So I still really like the Rams. I'm going to buy the hook, and I already did buy the hook. I would say if you're going to follow me on this one, buy the hook to get it to the 3. If for no other reason than just to get the key number, I do think the Rams are going to win. So if you wanted to sprinkle something on the money line, I don't blame you. But it's at plus 110 or plus 111, so it's not a huge money line. If you can take the points, you might as well. So that's the first one. Now, another game that we've taken here is the Giants. The Giants we got at plus 6.5, and I had even bought the hook almost a month ago now. So it was at plus 7 is what I got it at. Now it's already come down to plus 6. And this is again on my bookie. It has gone down further on some other books. So I've actually seen it, the Giants plus 5.5 in some places. And once it gets off of this 6, whether you're looking at my bookie or anywhere else, I do believe you're going to see that number start to plummet, especially as we get closer. Kind of the same issue here with the media and the hype and all that kind of stuff. You're hearing more and more people jump off of the Titans bandwagon and talk about how, Ryan Tannehill doesn't look good and how Derrick Henry's old and how they lost A.J. Brown and all the other negative stuff, where the Giants are on the complete opposite side of that. And, again, we have Brian Daboll, you have a healthy Saquon, you have, Wan'Dale Robinson and just all the hype and the pluses for the Giants and all the deltas on the Titans. So you're starting to see that come in. These sharps have already put their money on the Giants. You're going to see the general public come in. And again, as you get closer to week 1, you're going to see more and more money coming on this Giants team. Once it gets under the 6, there are no more key numbers until they get to 5. Until they get to 3. So if it gets down to 5.5, I have very little doubt that it's going to get down to like a 4. And it's going to happen like dramatically. So you may look at it, and if you don't have the money to put in there right now, or if you're just not ready to pull the trigger on it, be prepared, because you're going to end up getting a much worse number than you could have gotten today or yesterday or last week. If you can, grab this number right now or as soon as possible. I would say some places you probably already missed it because they're already juicing up the 6. I've seen the plus 6 at minus 125 and minus 115. My bookie's still your best bet for right now, but again, can't promise that. Now the other thing is with the Giants, this is another spot where I would look the money line at plus 206. So if you can, again, if you're putting a full unit on the spread, you might as well just take a couple of dollars, like a quarter unit or even less than that, and just put it on the money line, because again, we're only betting dogs where we think they can just outright win the game. If you remember that, make that a rule, because at some point in the season, and it happens every year, you're going to see a team that's like plus 20, plus 21, or just like a plus 17, and it never fails. You'll have people that are like, oh my God, 17 points. That's so many points. How could I not take that? And some people will even say, you know what, it's plus 20. I'm going to tease it to plus 26 because it just seems like so many points. Don't do that. If you don't think the team has any shot to win the game, and you cannot at least like reason with yourself as to why a team could possibly win, don't touch it. I don't care how many points they give you, because the books are telling you it's going to be a blowout, and you're just betting on essentially a coin flip as to if this team is going to beat them by 30 or beat them by 40, right? So that's one of them. We have a couple other picks for week 1, and I'll just kind of recap them real quick. We do have the Patriots plus 3. We got that earlier in the season. That has actually come back because it had gone down to Patriots plus 2.5. The Patriots plus 3 at minus 110 is back. So if you want to jump on with us, go ahead and get into that. We also have the Ravens, and we got the Ravens at minus 6 earlier in the summer. It's now at Ravens minus 7. I still like it. Again, if you wanted to tease that one, I don't blame you, and you just kind of get it down through all the key numbers. But even at the minus 7, I don't hate that either. I think it's still got some value to it. Those are the main plays we have for week 1. There's some others that I either like or I'm looking for or just kind of waiting on a little bit, and we'll get to that when they come up. For right now, the play that I want to talk about, and the one that I think is going to be moving relatively shortly here, is actually going to involve the 49ers. So the 49ers minus 6.5 versus the Bears week 1. I really like it, and I have liked it for the majority of the summer. The reason we have not pulled the trigger on this one is I was waiting to see a little bit more of Trey Lance. I really wanted to see if we could maybe see him in the second preseason game, especially if it is, kind of their dress rehearsal, and see how he's looking, how he's playing, who he's targeting, and all that kind of stuff. But as we wait longer and longer, I'm hearing more and more talk about this particular game and about how bad the Bears are. And you're, again, going to get into this kind of media loop here where there's a lot of hype on the 49ers right now. A lot of talk about how good Trey Lance is, how good he's looking in preseason, how good he's looking in camp. And you're getting the exact opposite from the Bears and how bad they are and how they don't have any offensive talent and how there's just all these things that are kind of working against the Bears. Now, my rationale is not necessarily listening to the media, even though I do believe some of that stuff is true that they're saying. One of my biggest points here, and you've heard me say this before, so stop me if you've heard me, but it's a first-time head coach. So the Bears, again, have a first-time head coach. First-time head coaches only win the game about 25% of the time, and again, that is season openers. And on top of that, that 25% of the time does include when they also play other first-time head coaches. So in this case, that's not the situation. Shanahan is a very accomplished head coach, right? He's going to be going up against a brand new rookie head coach with a second-year quarterback in a new system with what grades out to be one of, if not the worst, offensive line in the entire NFL. And I'll show you in the Madden algorithm here in just a second that their offensive line is just ranked god-awful. I don't think that's going to help any. They don't have a lot of good receiving depth. And even if they do have, a receiver in there that pops out of nowhere, like if Darnell Mooney really shows out, how much can he really do when there's only like 2 seconds to throw the ball? Aside from that, though, 49ers obviously have a lot of firepower on offense. Trey Lance sounded like he's kind of stepping up to the plate here. It sounds like he's doing what he needs to do. He's looked really good in the little bit of preseason that we've seen, but he's looked even better in camp and the 11-on-11 drills and stuff like that. Fields recently came out, and you've probably seen this if you're on Twitter, just saying that he had a lot of receiving options on the Bears, if you want to call them that wouldn't make the sixth string for Ohio State. And honestly, I don't think he's exaggerating too much. So his general distrust of his receivers, the fact that they don't have a great offensive line, and they don't have like an electric running back. Yeah, they have, obviously some talent back there, but just not like a guy like a Christian McCaffrey who's going to go make his own plays. A lot of even like Khalil Herbert, you think he's good, but I don't think he's going to go out there and show out and get anything too much more than what the offensive line is going to provide for him. So just not any reason in my mind to think that the Bears can win this game. And if you act right now, you're getting the 6.5 or minus 6.5 on the 49ers. Able to lay that. You don't have to lay the full 7 points, which again is one of the key numbers. And you can still get it at minus 110. I have seen it already going to minus 115 and minus 120 in some places. And again, with the hype, and as we get closer and closer, and especially if Trey Lance looks good in this second game, you're going to have missed the boat. It's going to go to minus 7. It's going to go to a juiced minus 7, assuming that everything stays right and that there's no like injuries or anything like that. You're probably looking at like a minus 7 at a minus 120 for the 49ers. There's just not really any reason for anybody to think the Bears are going to win this game. And if I had to just kind of guess what the take is on this, right now I'd say it's probably 70-30 for the 49ers, obviously against the Bears, but there's just not a lot of money in it yet because there was too many questions about the 49ers, how they were going to use Debo and Ayuk, and if Kittle's going to be healthy and all that kind of stuff. Those answers are getting those questions are getting answered, and the more questions that get answered, the less doubt there is, the more this line's going to move, the more money's going to come in on the 49ers. So you're going to want to get this play as soon as possible and get it in your belt, because it's probably not going to be there in the next week or so. So that's the play I want to add to our Week 1 lineup. I'm going to put all of the Week 1 plays in the comments below. So if you don't know them, if you haven't been paying attention all summer, it's fine. Go down there, try to catch up. Some of them are still available, some of them are not. Some of them are still available, but they're very juiced. It's up to you. I personally don't like to play anything really over like minus 135, and even that's kind of a stretch. So look at it and see which ones you can still go out there and grab. All right, now the last thing I want to look at here, and this is going to be, well, I'll tell you what, two things I want to look at. 1 second to pull up our Madden algorithm. All right, guys, I'm sorry, I know the picture is not great because it's not fitting. There we go. Okay, so this is Madden algorithm. Again, if you're new to the channel, it's something I do. I break down every single team with this algorithm at the beginning of the season. Typically, this algorithm is really, really good throughout the first about 4 weeks or so of the season. And I would say really about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how much you tweak it and play with it and all that kind of stuff. That being said, after that time has gone by, it kind of starts to taper off because a lot of the stats from Madden are not as valid anymore after that time. There's just too many changes, too many injuries, too many like coaching schematics that have changed, and at that point you start to kind of transition over to a different algorithm, which is the coaching algorithm I've created. But we'll talk about that when we get there. For right now, there's nothing to put into that coaching algorithm because there has not been anything really truly played. So for Madden, this algorithm actually has it as the 49ers only being about a half a point favorite over the Bears. The reason I bring this up is to show that I seen it. I understand what this algorithm is showing us, and I think that one of these teams is way off. There's something in here that's going to be completely different, and it's something we need to be aware of, because the Bucs, while there's not a lot of written documents on how they like handicap each individual game, for the most part this algorithm is relatively close to what is actually out there, and I can make these lines as soon as Madden comes out, like with their ratings for the year, and I would say about 90 to 95% of the games are within like a point of what the spread is. So anytime we see a huge swing like this, something's off, and we can use it both ways. So if the 49ers are much better than what Madden's expecting, it's a team we can ride and look to stay on for the next couple weeks, even though they have some difficult games coming up and things like that. If the Bears are even worse than what Madden thinks of them right now, then it's a team that we can safely fade, as well as understand that we're probably going to have value on them for a while, because the books are going to adjust their numbers. They're going to kind of tweak their stuff as they go along, just like we do, but it's going to take them time to get it accurate. So if it is a huge swing, if we're talking about a 6-point difference here between Madden and the Bears, they're probably going to have a lot of either really, really big numbers or really, really little numbers compared to our value as we move forward, and that's where we're going to want to take our shots. So one of these two teams is going to prove this wrong. I am thinking it's going to be the 49ers, and a couple of things on here. I think that Trey Lance is probably better than this 72. He's either much better or much worse, and I think that's really what this comes down to. On the Bears side of the ball, though, this offensive line rating is at a 70.25. I can tell you again, I ranked all 32 teams using this algorithm, and I'm struggling to think of a team that was even close to being this low. I think there may have been one or two other teams that had a really low offensive line score, but that's pretty much the nut low. So the Bears' offensive line is going to be an issue. Most of the ratings within the Madden algorithm as far as like individual positions or spots, things like that, are not too far off. You may see like a couple points here and there for each individual position, right? Like wide receiver 1 versus wide receiver 1 on the other team. Some teams just have star receivers, others don't. But when you look at it as a group, it's usually a relatively close grouping because they're all NFL players. So the fact that they have such a drastic drop-off in the offensive line from the rest of the teams is just screaming like a red flag to me. So there is an issue here with the Bears. I think I'm not breaking any ground here. You guys probably know this, but it is a reason for us to take the 49ers minus the 6.5 for that week 1 game. Now, if we go into week 2 with this algorithm, we can take a look at this Cowboys game, and this is the one I really want to. I've already put money on. I've already locked it in. I've only put a half unit on it, but I'm probably going to put the other half before we even get to week 1. These are all pretty updated. There's going to be some tweaks to this as we go through the preseason, especially if somebody gets hurt. As long as it's nobody major, like it's not the quarterback for either of these teams, really isn't going to be a huge difference in the spread. This already accounts for home field advantage and all the players and all the other stuff. This spread here of 0.73, that actually means that the Cowboys should be a favorite of let's just round it up and say a point. So it should be -1. So that's what the line should be. Currently, it is the Cowboys -2.5. Now, a couple things about that. One, like I said, I already put a half unit on this. Yes, I bought the hook. I can tell you all day, and I'll scream it till I'm blue in the face, the key numbers are key numbers for a reason. The 3 and the 6 and the 7 are the 3 big ones, with the 10 being the minor key number. And again, if you didn't already know this, and if you hadn't been following the channel throughout the summer, I don't blame you, but just know that the 3 shows up a whole hell of a lot throughout the season, and if we want to get that number, and especially if we're going to only have to pay like -120 or even -125, it's going to be worth it towards the end of the season, and I'll show you the numbers here as we get into the season. That being said, though, this is another team that I think is overvalued, and by that I mean the Cowboys. I think Dak is probably close to an 89. I don't think that's too far off, but I think the rest of this team here is gonna regress, and in the regular, actual, real life NFL as well as the game, you're gonna see some differences here. So I think that their offensive line is worse than what they're rated right now. You still have Tyron Smith rated as a 95. I don't think he's a 95 anymore. I think he's probably closer to like a 90. He has like Martin at 98. Maybe that's true. I think he's probably closer to a 95. You have a lot of these teams, or a lot of players on these teams, that are ranked much higher off of like some anomalies from last year. One of them, if you look at corner for the Cowboys, with Trayvon Diggs, they have him rated as an 84. Now, if you paid attention to any of those games, you know Trayvon Diggs he's a 50-50 guy. Either he's going to get you some picks and some turnovers, or he's going to let people burn him all day long. And so that's just, he can play up to an 84, but he can also play down to a 54. And so there's a lot of volatility in these ranks, whereas the Bengals, I think, are going to be much more of a like baseline kind of team. Obviously, they did have some luck go their way last year as they get to the Super Bowl, and just like every team needs some luck, right, to get to the Super Bowl. But they seem like a much more steady, kind of median played team where you don't see these huge swings in volatility. The Cowboys can play up to the competition, they can play down, but I think that when they get down, it's an issue. If the Bengals come out and they put up, a lead in the first quarter of the first half, the Cowboys are going to be in a bad spot, especially now that they don't have guys like Amari Cooper and they have an injured Michael Gallup. That's the other point on here, is that while these numbers look good, remember that a lot of the Cowboys team, as far as players like Michael Gallup, are either coming off of injuries or still will not be playing by week 2. And so I think that's going to show itself come week 1, especially if the Buccaneers come and just beat the dog shit out of the Cowboys. You're going to see this number go down. You're going to see the Cowboys, because it's not at a 3, it can move between 2.5 to 2 to 1 really easily, really quickly. It does not take a whole lot of money to move it, again, because it's not on a key number. If anything, they may look to move it down to the down to the -1 to kind of get some more action on the Bengals, as you have some hype around those Bengals. Now, you also have to worry about the other side of that. The Bengals are playing the Steelers. It's a divisional game for week 1. If they don't look so good, maybe the line doesn't move, or maybe stays the same, or it even goes up to 3. I don't think we're going to get the 3 here. I think you're probably seeing something similar to what we're seeing with the Rams and the Bills, in that the books are probably going to take a stand. Who knows how much money has come in on this game, because it's a week 2 game. Not a whole lot of people are looking at it. I'm telling you to get it now or get it soon, because as we get closer to it, you're going to see this line move one way or the other, unless things go very, very specifically in kind of a neutral way, which I don't think is going to happen. You're going to want to grab this now. Again, I bought the hook, got the Bengals +3. Feel very confident about it. I think that the spread that Madden is giving us at about like a 0.5 point to a 1 point could be accurate, because they're playing in Dallas. I would personally put this game as a pick'em, because I don't put a whole lot of merit into the Dallas home field advantage. So you're getting 3 points instead of the pick'em. Huge value, huge disparity in the level of competition, where you had the Bengals, who were able to make it to the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow, who's shown us, whether it was a national championship with LSU or going to the Super Bowl last year, that the guy can play, the kid can step up to the competition. And Zach Taylor, who's shown that he knows how to win games, even if he has to win them ugly, versus Mike McCarthy, who doesn't really know his asshole from his face, and he also doesn't, he doesn't done anything to inspire me. He doesn't give a shit about preseason. He has not made one single decision while he's on this team that makes me go, yeah, that's the guy I want coaching my team, and that's the guy I want to put money on. Lastly, you have Dak. I think he's fine. I think he can play well, but I don't think he's being utilized the right way, and I don't think he's going to be until the Cowboys get another coach in there. For all those reasons, I'm taking the Bengals right now, putting the money down, circle it, mark it on your calendar again. You get a calendar. Get a calendar before you listen to this podcast or this video. Anyways, that's the play for week 2 that I'm already putting out there, and we'll start putting that list together. So that's it. Sorry for the long video. Thank you for listening, guys. Hope y'all have a great week. Good luck. The preseason games are coming up. Hopefully we all win some money this weekend. Y'all have a great day.